So we're trying to explain why economies of scale is important when we're trying to explain trade between similar countries. In order to do that, of course, we have to understand economies of scale. Economies of scale is defined as the average cost decreases as the scale of production increases. That is, as firms or industries get bigger and bigger and bigger, the average cost of producing a good goes down. Of course, economies of scale is related to increasing returns to scale. And increasing returns to scale is defined as productivity increases as the scale of production increases. Here I've given just two very simple examples of what I'm saying here. For increasing returns to scale, you have that output is a production of capital and labor. So the function of capital and labor is equal to Q. If you were to double the amount of capital and double the amount of labor, so there is a function of 2K and 2L, increasing returns to scale says that you will have more output than if you just had twice as much output in the first place. So the output when you double all inputs is greater than the double of the output. Now if you have economies of scale, then if you just pay for labor and capital, then you have your total cost. And if you pay for labor and capital, but you double the labor and you double the capital, you have 2 times the total cost. If you just use these two numbers to calculate the average cost, which is this total cost divided by output, then in the first case, when you just have K and L, then the total cost divided by the function of capital and labor is one number. But if you were to double your capital and double your labor, then you double your cost, but you more than double your output, and therefore your average cost will be lower. Alright, so this is going to be our basic story here. And what we're going to try to explain later on, but not in this podcast, but in our discussion in class, is that identical countries trade with each other because of these kinds of economies of scale. And we'll see that trade due to economies of scale is beneficial because it increases production efficiency. Of course, trade, because trade due to economies of scale will create both winners and losers, just like trade based on comparative advantage. So we will not be focusing on winners and losers here. We have already done that. But of course, trade due to economies of scale requires specialization in order to increase the volume of production, to increase production efficiency. But it's actually uncertain which country will specialize in which good. So we'll kind of just assume that one country will do one good and the other country will do another good. I'm just going to use a very simple example here. So in the first case here, we have constant returns to scale. So we're assuming a perfect world because perfectly competitive markets kind of assumes constant returns to scale. We have two countries, USA and USB. They produce two goods, C and T. And the technology is such that the output of good C is a function of K and L, so that is L to the power of 0.5 and K to the power of 0.5. And we know it is constant returns to scale because those two exponents add up to 1. And the output of T is a function of K and L again, but now it's L to the power of 0.7 and K to the power of 0.3. Again, those two exponents add up to 1, so we have constant returns to scale. And we assume that both USA and USB have 40 units of labor and 20 units of capital. In fact, we assume that the USA and USB are identical in all the ways that we have assumed before. Same resources, same amount of resources, same goods, same preferences, same technology. I created a little bit of table here. You can see that if you have 20 workers and 10 units of capital in industry C, you get 14.14 units of output. But if you put 20 units of labor and 10 units of capital in the T industry, you have 16.24 units of T. But if you had 40 units of labor and 20 units of capital, that if you put all your resources in a C good, you'll have 28.28 units of C. And if you put all your labor and capital in the T production, you'll have 32.48 units of T. Of course, you cannot do both at the same time. Now, if we just assume that the USA allocates half their labor and half their capital to each industry, we know that they will produce 14.14 units of C and 16.24 units of T. And if USB does exactly the same thing, they will also produce 14.14 units of C and 16.24 units of T. And therefore we'll have a total of 28.28, 14.14 plus 14 plus 4.14 units of C and 32.48 units of T. The question is, what if we specialize? What will happen then? Well, what will happen is absolutely nothing. So if the USA were to produce only C goods, then they will produce 28.28 units of C, the same amount as the world was producing before we specialized. And if the USB produces only T goods, we'll get 32.48, which is also exactly the same as what the world is producing. So with constant returns of scale in identical countries, there is no reason for specialization and trade, because we don't get any more. We cannot increase production efficiency through specialization if we have constant returns to scale. Maybe we can do better if we have increasing returns to scale. So now we use those second set of equations, and we see here that if you have 20 units of labor and 20 units of capital, you can produce 24.02 units of C and 25.75 units of T. But if you put all your capital and labor into the C industry, you get 55.19 units of C, and you get 59.15 units of T if you put all your labor and capital into the production of T. Again, once again, you cannot do both of them, of course. Now, if you have no specialization, then both USA and USB will be producing 24.02 units of C and 25.75 units of T if they allocate half their labor and half their capital to each industry. And therefore in the world we'll have 48.04 units of C and 51.50 units of T. Can we do better if we specialize? Yes, we can. If we have USA only producing the C good, then we can have 55.19 units of C. And if USB only produces the T good, then we can have 59.15 units of T. And of course, since both consumers in USA and USB wants to consume both goods, we would have to trade C from the USA to USB and T goods from USB to USA. But we note here that the world is a better place in the sense that we have more units of C and more units of T after specialization. 7.5 C more, 7.65 T more. So the world is better off, at least we can be better off, because of this production efficiency. If we quickly tie this back to economies of scale, which has something to do with average cost, we can see that with constant returns of scale and no specialization, the average cost of C, if we add up the cost of labor and the cost of capital, assuming that the wage rate is $20 and the price of capital is $50, so the total cost, if you have half your labor and half your capital in each industry, will be $900. So the average cost for a C good is 900 divided by 14.14 equal to $63.65. An average cost in the T industry is 900 divided by 16.24, $55.42. And this is true for both countries. Now, if you were to specialize, so the USA produce all the C goods and USB produce all the B goods, then of course we will double the total cost in the C industry for the USA, but we will just double output as well, and therefore the average cost stays exactly the same. And in the USB country, you double the cost of producing T, but you double output, and therefore their average cost stays exactly the same. Again, there is no reason to do this, because with constant returns to scale, there is no difference in average cost when the scale of production increases. However, this is not true for increasing returns to scale. Here we can actually increase the scale, or we become more productive when we increase the scale, and therefore your average cost goes down. And here we have that the average cost before specialization was equal to 37.47 and 34.95 in the C industry and the T industry, respectively, in both countries. But if we specialize, then the USA can produce only the C good. They double their cost of production for C, but they more than double the output in the C industry, and therefore the average cost decreases to $32.61. And if USB produces only the T good, they will double the cost of production in the T industry, but they more than double the output, reducing average cost to $30.43. It is now both average costs are lower, and again, production efficiency allows us to reduce the price of everything, and therefore consumers will be better off than they were before. Again, here we have the outcome that economies of scale will allow two countries that are identical to each other to benefit from specialization in trade, even though they could not do so under constant returns to scale in identical countries. A more complete model will include a love for variety, so that consumers and the producers, they produce more than just two goods. But right now, even here in this very, very simple model, we see that economies of scale can allow identical countries to benefit from trade. Thank you.